Look, all I'm gonna say is if you listen to a YouTuber like me who plays video games and you use that as your compass for life, you're even dumber than I am. You know, people are always like, I want to start an airline where no babies can fly. You know, there's nothing worse than being on a flight for 45 minutes and the baby 16 rows away won't stop crying because its freaking ears are popping and is so confused about what the heck's happening right now. Isn't that hard for me? Lemon party. The irony is, I have heard more adult babies cry about babies than I have heard babies cry. And I've flown a lot. Not so much recently, but anyway. But regardless, I found myself in the classic position of realizing I'm a hypocrite because we were at this cool restaurant, and like most cool restaurants, you're packed in like sardines. There were some people there that brought like strollers, and I was just losing it because I had always, well, not losing. I was engaging in mild observational humor. It's like I kind of thought that was like the trade-off of having a very young child, like let's say between the ages like 0 and 5. I thought there was almost like you signed a contract with the devil. Don't let me finish. I thought it was like we're gonna have this kid for the next few years. Can't go to as many cool restaurants. I'm not saying the parents can't go, but this is like it's a babysitter restaurant. I don't mean I'm trying to think. I mean this in a non-judgmental way. Okay, I'm not trying to say that parents of young children can't go out to, you know, cool, hip places. I'm hip. What I'm trying to say is, I sort of thought they wouldn't want to. Because, like, you know, this place is more expensive than your traditional family restaurant. There's less space. They probably don't have a high chair. You gotta pilot your stroller through, like, a hallway where you got 8 inches of clearance. Some of the people in the restaurant have been drinking alcoholic beverages, you know? Like, why go here when, you know, there's like a Denny's a block away? I feel like if I had like a 2-year-old, I would be like, let's just go to Denny's. I don't want to inconvenience these Zoomers. They're enjoying their chicken karages and their, you know, oishi sushi and etc. etc. Well, I mean, as I always say, I don't claim to know the philosophy of a parent. People are always trying to tell parents how to parent. And I have no insight there. I'm childless. I'm supposed to be able to travel and go to the cool restaurants and stay up a little later. And you're supposed to have more joy, supposedly, than anything else you've ever had in your life, but you're tired. And you have to go to McDonald's instead of going to, like, you know, cool and hip, trendy restaurants, okay? That's the trade-off we all agreed upon. And I don't know when you went back on your deal. But I'm sure I've told this story. I mean, I've talked about it a lot with Kate, too, because, you know, we're like, if we have a kid, how are we going to educate it? Because, like, I like parts of the Canadian system. You know what I like about the Canadian system? Public school system, at least, is, like, they give kids a lot of time. And I think that's nice for a child. And, you know I've joked about kids having way too much free time in the past, but, you know, for like an 8-year-old to not have 10 hours of homework a day is, I think, a positive thing. But the bad thing is, I'm like, man, you could go a lot faster. Like, when I was teaching in Korea, kids that were in, like, 6th grade were learning math that I learned in high school. Now, the Korean system also, like, middle school students get, like, 5 hours of sleep a night maximum because they wake up and go to school. And then after school, they go to English Academy. After English Academy, they go to Math Academy. After Math Academy, they got sports. After sports, they got Music Academy. They go home, they got 3 hours of homework from their class. The plight of a Korean middle school student is ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. They're doing way too much work. So that system, I think, is suboptimal as well. Kate and I both walked, well, I mean, we were together. We walked by a Montessori school, and I explained the concept of it to her, which, as I understand it, is, and I'm very ignorant on this subject, so please don't take offense. That's normally where you'd say, I'm very ignorant, so I'm going to stop talking, but that's not what I do, okay? Whatever, like, there's a curriculum, sort of, but whatever your child is, whatever a child, I should say, is, shows an affinity for or an aptitude for, they kind of tailor learning in that direction. Like, the learning is a little bit self-directed, or maybe a lot self-directed. And both of us went, oh, that's ridiculous. when we when we talked about a Montessori school. I think there's good and bad, right? Like, I think if a kid knows what they want to do when they're like 6 years old. Like, I went to school with kids that are like, I want to be a computer programmer. Definitely kids that were in like high school were like, oh, I know 100% I'm going to be a computer programmer. So like, why am I in English class? Those people, I understand Montessori school. For me, I'm like, I need to be forced to do things I don't want to do sometimes. It's very important to my personal growth as a human being to occasionally be forced into doing something that I would rather not do. It's hard, you know. I'm not saying, like, why can't anybody design a better system? Of course you can design a better system. But can you design a better system, you know, given limited resources and a class that has to hold 15 to 30 kids? And also, you know, if you're the parent of the kid who's moving along fastest, you're on the horn with the principal, like, why isn't my kid learning faster? If you're the parent of the kid who's not doing so well, you're on the horn like, they're going too fast, you're leaving my kid behind, you know? It's a solution built on compromises. It's too easy to be like, why don't they just do this? I love the idea, academically, of homeschooling a child, but it comes with I've only met one homeschooled individual in my life. Okay, so this is not fair, but it comes with a reputation that a homeschooled child misses out on the social part of having to be in, you know, surrounded by classmates. And, you know, I understand that there's a lot of negativity that comes with that social element, you know, conflict, bullying, etc., etc. But it's also it's a helpful kind of kick in the teeth to get you ready for society. Maybe I'm like, I want something self-directed, but also with other kids. And people are like, a Montessori school. And I'm like, I told you I don't speak Italian. I'm probably ignorant to the concept of a Montessori. I know Dan's got one of his, I don't know how old his second child is. I think his first child is in a Montessori school. Which is crazy, because I didn't know he spoke Italian. But, what, are we going to give our child a middle name? Kate said no. Honestly, I'm glad.
That's fair. Yeah, no. Let's just save him the trouble. Why even put the initial in the middle?
Someone in chat brought it up. They're like, are you going to give your daughter a middle name? And I was like, I don't see why I would, but let's run it by the boss first. I'm glad we're on the same page there. Because, like, Korean people don't have middle names, right? Asian people don't have middle names. Okay.
Oh, you know, because I was gonna say the person that you'd probably need to run that by with too is like family.
The government? No.
Right? Yeah, the government.
I don't know. Like, do you need a middle name? No, there's no way.
But like a middle name is usually like, don't they? Like, I don't know. Different families have different traditions here, where it's just like, well, you should name, have a middle name after your grandfather.
Yeah.
Or, your Uncle Pete or something.
I am indeed named after my grandfather.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah.
I don't think. Well, I hope my dad's not offended because it's a girl for one. But then I don't think my mom would be offended at all. Are you gonna teach your child Korean? Kate and I have been laughing about this question. But in the inverse, we did have one person ask, and if you're here, I apologize for spotlighting you. But somebody asked, "Are you gonna teach your child English?" Which I thought was hilarious. that we would deliberately not teach our child the language that I speak, for one. Kate also speaks it, but it's the only language I speak. In case you're curious about that one, we will be teaching them English and Korean. And we haven't really talked about it that much, but I'm sure Kate will probably teach Japanese as well. And she'll be taught French in school. Yeah, but like, so was I. And I'm like, je voudrais une salle de bain plus grande, s'il vous plaît. What do you think about learning Korean yourself so your child won't talk smack to you? So in January and February, I did put more effort into learning Korean. I learned enough to say 저는 배고파, which is I'm hungry, and 저는 피곤해요, which is I'm tired. Two very, very valuable phrases. You just utter those and hope someone solves your problems. I would like to be able to speak better Korean. Oh, I can write those phrases for sure. I can write it and read it better than I can speak it, without a doubt. I always find it funny when people are like, aren't you worried like your wife and daughter will talk about you behind your back? I'm like, what happened in your family dynamic? Honestly, if they we're at the dinner table, they start speaking Korean to one another. I'll just do what I do at family gatherings already. When the Korean gets busted out, my phone gets busted out. And I just go on Twitter instead and go, good tweet. Mute. Good tweet. Not everybody gets grossed out by poop. I always feel like I'm on the back foot. Because, like, people... The number one thing that people ask you, as a man at least, when you're like, we're having a baby, is like, oh, are you ready to deal with those diapers? And the answer is like, yeah. Like, I'm not stoked to deal with the diapers. But I'm also like, get over it. It's not that big of a deal. I know that it's just get over it forehead is not helpful advice. But, like, I know I've said this before, but I'm way more freaked out by the possibility of like raising my child in such a way that they become a terrible adult who is like incapable of interacting with other people and has no sense of happiness whatsoever or fulfillment, you know? Like, that's the kind of stuff that'll keep you up at night. A little bit of stinky poop. Everybody poops, dude. Why are you being such a big baby? I think that, like, in the human brain, there's almost like a social cue that's like, you gotta be super grossed out by this or something's wrong with you. Again, I want to reiterate, it was not my favorite thing to do. It's not like if I had 6 hours, I'd be like, I'm gonna go volunteer down at the diaper changing charity. I'd rather ladle the soup. If I can do the soup ladling instead, that would be ideal for me, I think. Ew, somebody did it for you. Pay it forward, you selfish so-and-so. Why are you being weird about it? If you gave me the choice, deal with the diapers or deal with the lack of sleep, I would choose dealing with the diapers 100% of the time, full stop. And I know you might be like, you don't know until you've been there. You're right, on a literal sense, but I also know myself better than you know me. It's the high order stuff that is way more freaky about having a kid. Is like, you know, the way you behave and interact with that child is gonna leave an imprint on them for the rest of their life. People end up screwed up. I've got friends who did not have the best upbringing for sure, and it's kind of like impacted them. I'm sure people listening to this are like, yeah, you're describing me right there. For real, the older I get, the more I'm like, man, my parents like crushed it. I literally can't think of like a single story from my childhood of like my parents behaving in an embarrassing way. My dad got drunk once when I was like 10, and my mom razzed him over the story for like to this day. It's not even really irresponsible. I mean, they were like enjoying legal fun in their own home, but still, like that's the standard that my parents set. I don't have a story where it was like, yeah, my dad like forgot to pick me up from school, so I was there for like 4 hours. You know, I don't have anything like that. My parents were they made me a priority, which I appreciate, and you know, it's a good lessons for me moving forward. I'm just saying, if you screw it up, there's big consequences potentially. We don't swear that much to begin with. If anything, you didn't hear it from me, but Kate swears more than I do. But like, you don't have to swear, or you don't have to not swear around like a 2-month-old. It's not like they're subconsciously picking that up and their first word is gonna be like, oh, son of a. And I know, by the way, many people listening to this are probably like, words, I'm not going to teach them that those words have power. So, okay, cool. Like, that's fine. Your kid's gonna be the strange kid who in like 2nd grade says the S word, and everybody's like, what's going on in their home life? You know? You're using your child as, this is my personal opinion, you're using your child for your own weird pet cause, and you have a right to raise your child more or less however you see fit within reason, but that's like a hill that I'm not gonna die on. Sometimes people will ask you questions that they seem like shocked that you don't know. They're like, when are you gonna let your daughter drink soda? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. She's negative 5 months. The same reason that I do not want to give our daughter like a, you know, a name that's like personally significant to me, but the kid might not have that same relationship. Like, I'm not gonna name my daughter like, you know, Magdalene, you know, just because of the fact that that's a character in Isaac or whatever. That's not for me. That name doesn't belong to me. That name belongs to the child, which is just an individual in waiting, right? Like, on the show, I talk about stuff in society that I think is like nonsense. Like eating foods with your hands. But this is not a bad example. At the same time, I might eat pizza with a knife and fork, okay? But I'll probably teach our daughter that pizza is a hand food, because when they're at like their friend's birthday party, I don't want them to go, Miss Simmons, can I have some cutlery please? And then be made fun of it for like, you know, A decade. As an adult, I'm capable of making my own decisions. If anybody makes fun of me for using a fork and a knife to eat a slice of pizza, I just laugh at them, because I'm like, you're getting your hands dirty over a sense of pride, which makes no sense to me. If you disagree, that's fine. Just remember, in this hypothetical example, you're the person who threw the first stone. I didn't go, whoa, you're picking that thing up with your hands? Weird! You know, I know that that's the norm. So anyway, that's my TED Talk. There's no way to get around this. Your child is going to resemble you, not just physically, obviously, but in terms of personality. Especially, like, the older I get, the more I'm like, I see myself in my dad all the time. He's, like, so impatient when he's building stuff. It's the same as me. Like, if I hammer a nail and it doesn't work, I'm like, this thing's freaking stupid. I don't know why hammering a nail wouldn't work, but, like, you know, I'll do that, and I think it's a very common thing, and not just a man thing, but, like, you know, I'll look at, like, IKEA instructions, and there'll be 2 screws that are, like, you know, one will be, like, 1/3 longer than the other one, and I'll just use one of them and be like, it doesn't matter. And then when I get to, like, the end of the thing, I'm like, turns out it matters a great deal, because now I'd only have the wrong kinds of screw left, and I'm like, well, why would they make it like that? You know, I'm, like, blaming them for no reason. Like, the instructions are actually clear, but I thought I was smarter, and I was like, no, we'll just do it my way. But I think you have, like, an obligation to raise your child in such a way that, sure, they're gonna take influence from you, but they're not just, like, a little carbon copy of you in school, because that's, like, real weird energy. We all knew kids in our school that was, like, you know, I mean, kids inherit their parents' opinions on a lot of things for a long time. And then when they're teenagers, you can tell the parent's opinion because it's the exact opposite of what the child's opinion is. Oh, my mom hates milk. I love milk. Best beverage ever made. I went to school with a lot of kids, and I went to school with a few miniature adults, if that makes sense. And I was always like, man, you've got an incredibly verbose position on Roe versus Wade for a 4th grader. How did that happen? That's bizarre. Not too many 4th graders I know have that much of a depth of knowledge about American Supreme Court cases. I wonder where that came from. We don't have a huge circle of, you know, local friends to begin with, but fiscally speaking, and we can handle it, don't get me wrong. Being unable to have a baby shower means that all the baby stuff falls on us. I didn't even realize. Like, people always say kids are expensive, and you're like, yeah, I know. But I really don't like the argument, and I probably used it, but it's like, you know, people are having babies back in 10,000 BC. And those babies survived. Well, yeah. Like, some of them. They did okay without the baby Bjorn bouncer. But, like, so you got the crib. That's a gimme. You got crib pads, which are just, like, things you put in the crib that is kind of like a pseudo mattress for the baby, I suppose. I gotta do some research on those to see if it's even okay to have those, because I read some stuff online that's like, it's fine. And then I read some stuff online that's like, your baby will be crushed by the crib pad. And I'm like, that can't be true. They're telling me Johnson & Johnson is selling baby crushing blankets. Anyway, I gotta look into it myself, do my own research on that one. Kate's sister said, you probably want 3 strollers. And I said, I thought you only needed 1 stroller. And then she said, you can get away with 1 stroller, don't get me wrong. But apparently, you want, like, a good stroller, like your everyday stroller. And then you also want a stroller that is, like, easy to get in and out of your car. Your car seat can convert to something that you could put in a stroller. And then, depending on where you live, you may also want a winter stroller that's a little bit more, like, insulated. You also, as a child gets older, you need a stroller, like different strollers for their age groups. All right, so there's that. That's like the stroller stuff. And we got like a white noise generator. Okay, so baby likes the white noise. I understand that. I will say I don't resent my own child. Let's not phrase it like that. But I was like, why does the baby need a white noise generator? And then Kate was like, well, the baby's used to sleeping with all the white noise in his stomach. And I was like, yeah, but like it's not in the womb anymore when it's out here. It's time to get on with it, you know? Things are gonna change, baby. Blankets, obvious. Onesies, obvious. So we're getting diapers, of course. We also got a diaper genie, which I actually very much consider an essential service. We have the diaper genie, if you're not familiar, is a let's call it, it's a trash can with 2 compartments. So it has an upper compartment and then a divider and then a lower compartment. It is useful to give you a place where you can store diapers without having to store your diapers in like a single trash can that will get incredibly stinky. And you're gonna be skeptical that it works, but we already have one of these for cat litter and it works like a charm. What that means is when you open the thing, because sometimes you're gonna be scooping that litter for like, 5 minutes, you're not smelling 4-day-old diarrhea. Let's just call it what it is. But then, like, when you look at baby monitors, there's like $20 baby monitors, $30 baby monitors. But then there's also like $300 baby monitors that are like, we give the baby an EKG. The biorhythms of baby sleep. I mean, when I grew up, I'm pretty sure we just had the one that was like goo goo gaga. Probably didn't even have video, right? In fact, I'll tell you, it definitely didn't have video. It was like a wartime radio. But on the other hand, if you really want to end up in a situation where, your baby suffers some kind of consequence and you got to go into the hospital and they're like, what kind of baby monitor did you have? And you're like, oh, we cheaped out and got the $20 one. And they're like, you monsters. If only you had the humidity control. It's just one of those, like, when it comes to, like, my own health, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll die one day anyway. I came from the earth. I'm going to return to the earth. Like, if I get, like, juice or something like that, and they're like, you can pay an extra $1 and get like the real juice, or for this price, you could just have like the crappy juice that's not even juice. It's just like we put citric acid powder in water. And I'm like, I'm not fancy. Just give me the fake stuff. Fisher Price Corporation, you got me. Congrats. But at least if something bad happens, the doctors will be like, what went wrong? You even had the baby monitor. Like, my parents grew up pretty hard. Not horrible, I think, but like, they had hardship. So when they had me, they remembered that they went through hard times, and they were like, our kid's never gonna have to deal with that. And as a result, I had a really nice and pleasant childhood that was like relatively stress-free, and I grew up to be an enormous wimp and a coward. And I've had to very, very slowly and with middling success learn how to grow a backbone over time, because when I was like 12, if I had a problem, I would just be like, Mom, I got a problem, and she'll be like, say no more, I already handled it, right? I'm now like, I kind of want my child not to have a harder childhood, because that's just mean-spirited and weird, right? Like, I suffered, so you're gonna suffer too. But it's more like, give them challenges that they might feel incapable of dealing with, but in such a manner that they learn how to deal with it, so they become more capable as they get older, right? Like when your kid is 10 and they're like, I don't like any vegetable. You're like, well, you're gonna eat those vegetables. But when your kid is a baby, you don't want to be like, yes, just, I don't know, we just let it sleep in the cardboard box to toughen it up. I don't think that's how that works. One of the worst pieces of advice we've gotten is from Kate's family, which is not advice, it's just weird, where they keep telling her, you're not gonna have one kid. Once you have that kid, you're gonna need to have more kids. Otherwise, you're never gonna have any time. And I'm like, what world are we living in right now? The more kids you have, the more time you have? Maybe 14 years after you have the child, you can get them to like vacuum. But let me be honest with you. I think the way that it's probably gonna work is like, you're gonna have to, I wouldn't say yell at them, but you're gonna have to ask them to vacuum so many times that you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna do this myself because it's more work to have to nag you. I could see a world in which having 2 kids actually gives you more free time. They could, go bug their brother or sister and be like, let's play, instead of like, bugging mom and dad. But I'm still like, I don't know if that's still saving you any time in the long term, or in the short term for that matter. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the idea. Is like, yeah, but did you really save time if you went through like a second pregnancy? And then like all the baby stuff again? Anyway, I was an only child, which not only means that I have no siblings to gauge how they were parented, but I also have no siblings who have kids to talk to about how they parent their kids. And I was also parented, predominantly in the 90s and the early 2000s. I mean, I guess on a literal level, I'm still parented now, but you know what I mean. Norms have changed over that time for sure. So, I don't know what things are like. When I was a kid, definitely, like, people were bringing sodas to school in, like, 4th grade. There were, like, 9 and 10-year-olds pulling out, like, a can of Pepsi at school. If we had like a play date and, you know, our daughter was 8 and one of her friends rolled up with like a 2-liter of orange soda or something like that, I would be like, honey, are you okay? Do you want some water? Like, it's just, cause so the genesis for this is this question that I've been asking, which is like, at what age do you give your kids soda? And I really think like part of the answer is never. Like, I think it's better just to not drink it, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that, again, based on my bubble of growing up, I think if you send your kid to school, they're at, you know, lunch, and one of the kids pulls out like a Pepsi, and your kid is like, what the heck is that? You know, you're setting your kid up to be kind of like, I don't want to say ostracized, because it sounds like that's almost like a justification, but you're setting your child up to be sort of like in the out group. But I don't know, I do live in Vancouver, so it's possible, like, you know, if you have water, some of the kids might be like, oh, your mom gave you water? She didn't even put any acai berries in it? So maybe where I'm thinking about this one is like, she can have a soda when she's like 10. We're not gonna keep soda in the house, but if she goes to like a friend's birthday party, I'm not gonna be like, and if somebody offers you soda, what do you say? No, get away, Satan! You know, that's just you setting them up for trouble. Keep in mind, I grew up in an era where like, my parents are great parents, but nutritional wisdom was not as widespread or well known as it is today. My parents were like, you shouldn't be drinking a lot of soda, it's bad for you. Instead, just drink like 8 glasses of orange juice a day. You know, I genuinely do not care if our daughter wants to be an astronaut. Well, I shouldn't say I don't care. I have no preference, except for maybe ones based on like job safety over my child being a doctor or a dentist or a YouTuber or working at a recycling depot or owning a stationery store. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not worried about the secondhand prestige at all. Same thing with, like, it's easy to say it now. I definitely do not want to coddle our child. Everybody seems to disagree. Or, well, let me rephrase. Everyone seems to agree that coddling is not good for a child. However, I guess in practice, it becomes easy to coddle the child because it's not pleasant to see your child in pain or discomfort. But I do remember, like, even when I lived at home after Korea, my mom was basically like my business manager. Again, different people will feel differently about this. I feel like one of the points of growing up is to become not self-sufficient, because that's unrealistic, but to be able to solve problems and handle like basic adult tasks yourself. My mom did all of my laundry and packed lunches for me essentially every day of school until I was in university. So that's rare for one. And also very cute. Thank you, Mom. I appreciate it. You laid the scaffolding for me to do as well as I did in school. Sometimes, you know, we hang out with our in-laws. Our nieces, you know, they're being raised to have limited screen time, which I think is, you know, very sensible, and another thing you have to contend with that you didn't have to contend with as much when I was a kid. But at the same time, when they have, like, you know, an hour, 30 minutes of iPad time or whatever, they can watch whatever they want to watch. You might be thinking that it's a good thing, and maybe it is, but I'm going to take the opposite position for humor's sake. Instead of watching something that might force them to leave their comfort zone, and I know that sounds like, you know, a little monka-esque, but what I mean is, like, you know, sometimes when I watch television shows with my parents, I'd be like, I want to watch, you know, Polka Dot Door, and my parents would be like, you can watch Polka Dot Door a little later, but for now the news is on. So I was forced to watch stuff that was maybe a little bit above my comprehension for a while, but maybe that caused my comprehension to grow, right? I've long been a proponent of the belief that child billionaires should not exist. It's just too much money. I don't know, everybody's got different priorities. Like, here's my thing. I don't think you have to do well in school to have a good life. My current opinion is more like, whatever you do, I would like you to give it your all. It's like, I don't care if you, like, want to become a dentist or whatever, but, like, if you're doing something for 8 hours a day, put your all into it. Like, yeah, Kate and I were talking about Montessori schools. I think we both have the same boomer opinion on a Montessori school. So instead of being like, you know, we got an hour of math, an hour of reading, an hour of writing, an hour of art, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know, if you enjoy reading, then you're going to get more reading. If you enjoy writing, you're going to get more writing. Both Kate and I are like, wouldn't the kid just, like, want to run around all the time? Wouldn't like 90% of the kids be like, more crafts, please? Yeah, I love snack class. The school system's kind of like messed up here. No, I mean, not the school system. Let me rephrase. It's the system of going to school. Because, like, there's huge waiting lists for Vancouver schools right now because the city was not built for, you know, this amount of population. Yeah, I was a teacher as well. I mean, but that didn't, like... It's not like I was part of the education system. I was a mercenary. Here's my... From teaching in Korea, here's my thoughts on the education system. Don't drive your 6th graders to depression, forcing them to take exams that determine... the outcome of the rest of their life just to get into a good high school? What are you a good high school? That's madness to me. On the other hand, I will also say those 6th graders were better at math than I was when I had a university degree. Oh, that's true. Then you just do what the boomers did and pull the ladder up behind you. So you're like, oh, nice job. Be a shame if I lived until I was 110 and kept my job and consistently voted against anything that makes me pay a proportional amount into the infrastructure as my parents did. Anyway, like if you ask me at what age does a child get a smartphone, I have no answer for you. I would say maybe in today's modern world, when they go to kindergarten, they can get a smartphone with like heavily restricted parental controls on it. Call 911 and call mom and dad. I think like junior, well, like I think like 5 or 6. Someone asked like what age is acceptable to play like M-rated games. I think it's like honestly like 12. It's way younger than the industry standard in my opinion. Like 18 to play an M-rated game is actually just hilarious to me. Like I had a friend in elementary school and she's really nice. She's a super nice lady. But her parents went by like the MPAA's ratings for everything. So like she wasn't allowed to watch PG-13 movies until she was 13. And she kind of like socially, it's not like it was a disaster, but she was like a little stunted socially because everybody else that was like, you know, 12 was able to watch these movies and like very quickly figured out what's real and what's not. And she was like at 12, everybody is trying to act like a little bit older. So she seemed even younger at 12. She had like the mannerisms and social cues of like a 9-year-old. I wish I could have this conversation with my mom and go back in time. Because like she wouldn't let me get Diablo when I was 12. And I was like, Mom, this thing's already, it's sorted. Don't even worry about it. So instead I waited until she went on a business trip. And then I asked my dad if I could buy Diablo 2. Let's just say I know how that worked out. What age to watch like R-rated movies? I mean, I think like 14, honestly. I guess I have a different relationship to media. Like, I don't think you should be watching a Serbian film, but like an R-rated movie that says the F word or like, you know, maybe some people get shot or their shoulders get chopped off or something. Anime? Maybe like 30? Yeah, okay. Kate said, yeah, okay. I'm gonna lose that battle. I was having sodas before 10. But my parents were also still in that generation that was like, sodas aren't that bad. At least it's not full-fat peanut butter. I was talking to my parents yesterday because it was a big day for them. They had a couple of milestones simultaneously. So I was talking to my parents. What I said to them is like, I actually kind of feel like, and maybe this is braggadocious, okay? I want to preface this by saying that when it comes to, you know, parenthood, people ask you questions that I find very strange. They're like, are you scared? Are you concerned? I'm like, no, not really. Like, I'm apprehensive about the fact that I know it's a huge responsibility. But I'm like, the rule book of how to be a parent is already out there, right? Like, you know, it's not like it's going to be a completely new human experience. You're going to be like, I can't sleep. What are you going to do? Nobody finds this joke funnier than me. Every time I repeat it, people just go, uh-huh. But I laugh inside every time. People always go, oh, you know, what are you going to do about not getting sleep? I guess I'll be friggin' tired, you know? What, do you have a better strategy? I don't want to sound flippant, you know, when I say, like, I'm not concerned. You know, I mean, I think that there's support network of people that have been through it, obviously, you know, just like a few billion. But I was telling my parents that I almost feel like I'm gonna adjust better than the average person because I'm already kind of used to having very limited free time. And if instead of my free time being sucked up by like you know, making one more Monster Train video a day or something like that, you know, we're gonna do some burping and some diaper changing and some goo goo gagas and some, hey, can you wash those bottles, and you know, when Barry, because you brought it up, if you guys choose to have children, when are you gonna let your child play T and M rated games?
Oh, here we go. Yeah,
As soon as they want to.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm gonna hold them back too much. They would probably know when they're ready. I think they would start with. Well, I don't know, man. It's gonna be a lot different because I'm seeing like a timeline like 5 to 10 years down the road. At the rate of technological progression we're at, they're just gonna start on a fucking VR headset from birth.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
If Bill Gates gets his way, he'll just put the VR chip into you when you get the COVID vaccine.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you won't even need the headset after that. So.
Same question.
I don't know. Like, I'm not that concerned about my child seeing like violence in video games, but I do think that, and this is kind of like skirting the original question, I guess. I think I'm going to be concerned about the amount of screen time because I do worry that it leads to a situation where if you grow up exclusively playing video games like too much, you find yourself in a situation where you find it harder to maintain focus on tasks that are not immediately gratifying for more than like a minute burst at a time.
That's a salient point. How do you feel about the way your child will perceive your career?
It comes up a lot. I'm not really that worried about it. Like,
I'm assuming you're not worried about it, but I wonder like how you think they'll perceive it, and like if Luna will think you're cool, basically.
I think
almost certainly not.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I think it's like always the curve, right? Like when you're like, your parents are your hero most of the time when you're like I don't know, before the age of like 9 or 10, and then from like 10 to 20 you're kind of like, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make sure I don't turn out like these failures, and then after that you kind of hit like a level of like mutual respect and stuff like that. So I just see it as part of the natural course of life. But as far as like how they'll perceive streaming, I choose to perceive it in the positive way, that if they ever are like, oh, you know, I'm curious what my dad and my mom were like when they were younger, they can go back and watch this stuff. I know you're like, laugh. I'm not worried about them seeing like dirty jokes and stuff like that. That doesn't bother me at all.
No, hey, dude, I am actually,
For sure.
I think it's extremely cool that you've got like a massive catalog for your child at some point to go back
neat.
if they want to see the examples of how you guys were before. Yeah, that's actually fucking cool as hell.
God, no, I don't know. Actually, now hold on. I don't know if I want my future progeny to know that. No.
Everything sexual about you ever?
I don't know. I see it like, you know, similar to if you were a stand-up comedian, you know?
Yeah.
I hate to use this as an example, but, you know, like, at least it's not like Louis C.K.'s kid, where, like, if they watch his sets, every set is like, I hate my dumbass wife so much.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then also, of course, the news about him. It's just,
That would be
more
all of that.
But if they're like, you know, ooh, that joke's gross, I'm gonna be like, yeah, it got the people going. People laughed.
Built this empire.
Yeah, exactly.
The point was.
How do you think you're wearing those clothes, Luna? Where do you think they come from?
It was the 46th cum joke.
We got baby class this weekend, which I'm very excited about. 6 hours of baby stuff. Did we learn how to swaddle? I already explained to Kate, at least once in our child's lifespan, I'm gonna get the cops called on me. This large, bald, white man just stole an Asian child from your preschool. There's gonna be like, I'm gonna get an Amber Alert on my phone. You'll never take me alive, coppers! We already got like all the baby stuff. I think we're just missing the stroller. It's like a video card. Why would we buy a stroller right now? Next year they might release one with RGB. How does it feel that it could technically be any day now? I don't know if we're at that level yet. We're only at like week 27. I don't want to learn woodshop or auto shop or home ec or parenting. But now that I'm a little older, I'm like, dude, I really wish that like a parenting class, even like a 6-week parenting class. We probably would not have taken it seriously as 11th graders, but still, give you some useful intel. I think that learning how to wrap a baby up in a blanket will also be useful for me because I'm not a very good burrito wrapper. I'm more of a fold and roll kind of guy, and they never turn out the same way they do at Chipotle, you know? So I don't know. I'm not gonna say that to the baby teacher because I don't want them to charge me extra. I think I will have times that I'm asleep and times that I'm awake, but you will not be able to set your watch to it for quite some time. But I also wonder if this isn't the genesis of me becoming a morning person. I don't think I have ever met an adult who wakes up after 9 a.m. that had children. They're like, after you have kids, your body is just going to wake you up at like 5:01 a.m. every day. We did have baby class this weekend. A lot of people have this attitude that's like, oh, how hard could birth be? There's 7 billion people on Earth. People are giving birth in like dusty field hospitals or, like 10,000 years ago when there was no medicine except you'd like rub the stem of a plant on a wound or something like that. It appears that, the whole birthing process is more complicated because there's a lot of stuff that they do to make sure you're safe. So it's a good thing, don't get me wrong, but that wasn't really what this class was. A little bit about like birth, but mostly about like, what to expect when you're taking care of an infant child. Learned a lot, quite frankly. A lot of stuff I didn't know. No, it was good, but it also it made things very real. The teacher was kind of reveling. I wouldn't say in our ignorance, but you could tell she'd done this before. And she's like, if you had to guess, how long do you think like a baby cries for? And I was like, I think I was a little confident, I'll admit. I don't know how long a baby will cry for in a 24-hour period, but I bet that it cries for like 45 minutes before you start to get alarmed. And then she pulled out this chart that was like, some babies cry for like 2 to 3 hours. Not per day, like in one interval. And I was like, that's a lot. She played us a clip from Pete Holmes' comedy special where he talks about how you're not supposed to shake a baby, but you're gonna like want to shake a baby. And by the way, this is not going to like, at the end of the lesson was not like, you could shake it a little bit. The end of the lesson was like, don't shake the baby, but here's what you do. So here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna like pick it up. You're gonna be like, are you hungry? And then the baby's gonna be like, I'm not hungry. But I can't really tell you that. You're gonna have to troubleshoot it like an old Linksys router. And you're gonna be like, I don't know, do you wanna just be like soothed? And then you like kind of bounce it around and it's gonna be like, nah, I don't really want that. Then you're gonna be like, I don't know, are you cold? Are you hot? Is you got a full diaper or something like that? Did you hear a loud noise? And then, after you go through the whole checklist, if the baby's still crying, you might just walk away. That was like the #1 tip she gave us. Was like, if you don't know what's causing the baby to cry, and you've checked to make sure that the baby is completely safe, your job here is done, so that you don't lose your sanity. It's a good piece of intel. Because I don't know, I would probably, without hearing the blessing of a professional, I'm too logical sometimes, even though I say illogical things for a living. I would be like, something's gotta be wrong, otherwise why would it be crying? But then, now that I think about it, as an adult, sometimes you just have days like that, right? You just, wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and people are like, why are you so grumpy today? And you're like, honestly, I hadn't really considered it until you asked me in this moment. I don't know, I had like a weird dream, and I woke up in a weird mood, and then that just kind of spiraled out of control for the rest of the day. And I've got, the most powerful organic computer. Honestly, I'm gonna be straight up with you. Pregnancy is like really pretty easy if you're the guy. I'm just being honest. Like, this is a 5-hour class, right? We were supposed to have two 3-hour classes, but she was like, oh, we can get this all done today if you guys have time. And I was like, hey, yeah, save me my Saturday. The first at least 3 hours were literally just like a to-do list for Kate. that was given by Mother Nature. And then, I'm not going to go into any gory details, right? After that, so she talked to Kate for like, you know, an hour. And then she'd be like, you just rub your partner's back. And I'm like, all right, I'm taking notes. I can do that. But I mean, I'm not saying you can't make yourself useful during the pregnancy, but it's a little harder, you know? It's a pretty easy class for me personally, but you know, if you ask around our household, they might you get a couple of different answers there. And that it made it much more real. I'll give it that for sure. I mean, I think it was worthwhile to take. Like, did you know that the baby has to eat 8 to 12 times a day when it's born? You know what was a good piece of intel, though? It was too many people are worried about spoiling their baby by responding to their cries too often. This is not, and this is their words, not mine. It's not to say you can't spoil a child or even like a toddler, but a baby is like unspoilable. You can't spoil a baby by, and this was their opinion. I don't know. The people out there have very strong opinions about stuff like sleep training, and you know, I haven't figured out where we're going to be there. We're still in that kind of mindset right now where we're like, you know, let's just get it into the world first, and then we'll figure out what happens from there. But because I think I've you know, had that opinion as a lay person that like, well, you know, you got to respond to your baby's cries, don't get me wrong, but at some point you got to just start ignoring them. Otherwise it's going to grow into like a 50-year-old man that's like, I'm hungry. Not really in the mood for any like time intensive hobbies for the time being. Kind of just, you know, cognizant of the fact that pretty soon me as a human being ceases to exist. I still do my job and I knock out the mortgage. However, my hopes, dreams, interests, ambitions, etc., are put on hold temporarily. And, you know, some people might look at that as like, that's not the truth. Well, I mean, I actually agree. I think that you can, you know, maybe get a burst of motivation from having a kid, a little bit of dad or mom energy, and, you know, that can motivate you to greater highs. But what I mean, you know, this is really like a laundered way of me saying my interests no longer come like first or second. And I think that if you're not okay with that, you know, maybe it's not the right time to have a child if you got a choice in the matter. I'm okay with my own stuff being on the back burner. Quite frankly, I get what I want too often. It's time to return to some degree of normalcy. My job's too cushy. I play video games on the internet, and, you know, if somebody's like, hey, great video, but not your best, I'm like, I can't believe that I have to weather the slings and arrows of the angry mob. This is ridiculous. What I'm accepting, because I don't even think it'll make your life worse. I think it makes your life worse through the lens of your previous life, if that makes sense. I know there is a huge child-free community where, like, it's a community that is surrounding the culture of not having a kid. And I always feel a little bad because I guess I just never had the situation in my life where people were pressuring me to have kids so much that, like, I felt like it was necessary to join a community that is the opposite. But yeah, my mom was like, when I was a kid, she was like, we don't really care if you want to have grandkids or whatever. And then, you know, as I got older, she was like, you know, we don't really care if you have grandkids or whatever. And I was like, I get it. We'll get on it, all right? No, they didn't pressure me at all. Genuinely. Which I think is big of them. I mean, yeah, it's my life, but at the same time, you know, as their only child, you know, it's kind of like a one-shot deal. But I definitely grew up in an era where, you know, if you were getting bullied, in all likelihood your mom was going to be like, don't worry, you know, just take the abuse for like 14 years and then eventually maybe you'll be their boss. I hate to say it, but that is the discourse I heard. Now, I wasn't really bullied, you know, for the most part. Teased a little bit, maybe, but... so I can't even, like, you know, have stolen valor for this, but... You know, I definitely, I feel like I've heard it a lot, that people are like, under no circumstances should, you know, you resort to physical violence. And I agree in a perfect world. But I'm also like, I don't know. I feel like if, you know, my kid was getting bullied, like physically bullied, and you were like, well, have you tried, like, talking to the administration? And, you know, we'll go together and talk to the administration and be like, hey, this isn't cool. And if they're ignoring it and not doing anything about it, don't worry, we'll kick up a fuss. We could make a YouTube video and some very incendiary tweets that would reflect poorly on them and maybe ruin their SEO for the rest of their lives. But also, I think, like, maybe if I just gave you, like, a little bit of a martial arts lesson and you popped them one in the jaw next time they were acting up, they'd probably stop. Not that I have the martial arts power. I'm just saying, like, we could get you, like, a Taekwondo lesson or something. That's probably more effective than just hoping it stops. Look, like most YouTubers and streamers, I'm dumb. Unlike some YouTubers and streamers, I acknowledge that I'm dumb. Show me what PhDs in early childhood development think about this subject. No, not that one. He lost his medical license. I think the best time to learn things is when you're a kid for two reasons. One is, with neuroplasticity, you learn better when you're a child. You know, it's why people always say past a certain point, it might not be impossible to learn a language, but it's much more difficult. I'll hit you with another one that you might not enjoy that I'm about to say. When you're a kid, it's not like you got, like, many other responsibilities. You can only stand outside in the summer sun and blow on, like, a daffodil petal for so long, you know? You gotta, like, as an adult, it's hard to motivate people to learn anything, because they're like, I'm full. Go to work, come home, knock out the mortgage. Is that not enough for you? I'm doing my bit. But the other one is that if you had given me the opportunity, and admittedly this is probably not the same for everybody, but I, like, really enjoyed learning for sure. I would have much rather done, like, some kind of after school, like, computer camp or something than done 10 years of softball. It's nice to have some socialization, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you know, if we're talking about sports as, you know, exercise, I don't think softball is really the one that I should have been in. Maybe cross country. Baseball, you know, is not the most, I mean, you're using your body, don't get me wrong. 40% of the time, you're running for, like, 30 feet and then going back to the start, you know, and standing still for... Heart rate doesn't really get that high consistently, is what I'm trying to say. And the other one is that they don't... I know this is weird, but, like, they don't notice, you know? Like, when you're teaching a child something, I'm not going to say they never get bored, because, again, I'm not speaking from experience yet. However, you know, as an adult, adults are like, I saw it all the time in, like, you know, programming class. Like, a programming assignment might take you, like, an hour, if you know what you're doing and paid attention in the class. People will be like, okay, first I'm gonna draft what I want to do in my head, which will take 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna give myself a little break to watch an episode of Battlestar Galactica. And then when I come back, I'm gonna write, you know, the first few functions that are gonna be critical, and then I'm gonna take a break and watch an episode of Battlestar Galactica. And I'm like, dude, this took you 6 days. Yes, and you know, it's the spirit of adult life. Can't tell me nothing. However, don't you sometimes wish that there was somebody there that's like, hey, don't skip the gym this morning, just, like, we're driving you? And then you would go like, but you would still go. And at the end of it, you would be like, I'm glad I did, maybe. So I'm not, by the way, saying that that's how we're going to raise our daughter. I think my wife and I have very different philosophies. And, you know, we'll end up somewhere in the middle. And by the middle, I mean closer to her philosophy. Which is probably good, because I have strong principles but a weak will.
Okay.
Kate had, like, contractions last night, and we were like, oh shit, it's going down. So we started, like, timing the contractions, and then, you know, after, like, I don't know. So we found that, like, with real labor, they start far apart and then they get closer together and stronger. These ones were just kind of like lightning bolts that were all, like, you know, staggered, like, and erratic. So we were like, okay, we're fine. And we are fine. But, like, right after we figured it out, that it was, like, false labor, dude, I was instantly tired. Like, because so much adrenaline got injected, like, into my body when we thought it was real. I was like, my hands were, like, involuntarily shaking, and, like, my legs were shaking. It was crazy. And I'm not even the one, like, having the baby.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Ryan, tell me about your wax.
That's what I was gonna bring up, dude. So, like, yeah, I got my chest waxed.
But you got your back hair still not waxed.
Yeah, back, shoulders, ass, nuts.
Like a weird zebra.
Back of my neck. Well, it wasn't for looks, right? It was for, like, the skin-to-skin contact, and so my child doesn't get a mouthful of chest hair. We did it just out of politeness, more or less. We were getting rattled because people were like, she just wanted you to feel pain, and that's why she waxed you. And I'm like, what kind of relationships are you in that are these constant kind of, like, weird snipes and stuff
Pro
like that.
tip.
Dude, she
They're
just tried to
not
make
in
you wear baby
relationships.
clothes.
Anyway, so yeah, I got waxed, and I gotta tell you, it hurt like a son of a gun.
What made you go with waxing versus just like shaving?
Shaving leaves sharp ends of the hair, whereas
Oh.
Removes the root.
yeah, it's a little smoother instead. So I thought it would be nicer for the baby. I hope he doesn't jack off or baby shark doo 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 doo. Baby shark doo 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 doo. Baby shark doo 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 doo. Baby shark. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark. Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark.